what you do at Initech is you take the specifications from the customers and you bring them down to the software engineers.
Yes, that's right.
Well, then I just have to ask, why couldn't the customers just take them directly to the software people, huh?
Well, I'll tell you why. Because engineers are not good at dealing with customers.
So you physically take the specs from the customer?
Well, no, my secretary does that, or the fax.
So then you must physically bring them to the software people.
Well, no. Yeah, I mean, sometimes.
What would you say you do here?
Well, look, I already told you. I deal with the goddamn customers so the engineers don't have to. I have people skills. I am good at dealing with people. Can't you understand that? What the hell is wrong with you people?
It had been a golden afternoon, and I remember having the familiar conviction that life was beginning over again with the sunrise.
All right, so let's not get too far from there, though, because we are going to talk about value today.
Some money. Money talk. The money conversation.
If I don't die.
Don't choke on your coffee.
First, before we get started, anything interesting in the last couple of weeks? How have you been enjoying the new space?
New space has been great. Glad everyone got to see a studio tour, which is a pretty unconventional little piece of video for us for the channel. For those listening, it's on the video version is on the YouTube channel. It was nice to record that episode in the space as well, even though
it feels good to be back.
It does. It sure does. So I wouldn't say anything super new, but yeah, wrapped up the studio, working on a new video on my YouTube channel. Had some other deeper realizations about what I've been doing this year that we won't get into right now, but I'll talk to you either in another episode or just on our own. That kind of kicked me in the butt this last week.
Good or bad?
It's a good realization, but it really brought me down. Just really brought me down. Not like stuck in that feeling of down, but just sort of a realization of part of what I've been doing this year. And that's maybe something we can talk about if we do like a year review episode a little bit later. Essentially, to tease it, I would basically like kind of categorize my year, which I sometimes will try to find a term to define what the predominant element was and what I was doing, like the year of self-discipline. I feel like this was the year of experimentation and indulgence. And
big indulgent year.
Yes, but I didn't think about that as much. So definitely self-discipline and decisions that came from a place of sacrifice waned, and decisions that were more from a place of indulgence that I wasn't aware I was being indulgent came in, and that was kind of the kick in the
I think what we should do,
the butt that got me down.
This is just having this thought right now, but I think what we should do is our year in review episode.
Yeah.
That might date it a little bit, but we'll try to keep it kind of high level.
Sure.
But then I think we should also do we always have the goal setting kind of meetings. I mean, we've been doing that for 6 years at this point. Maybe we should do that one.
Yeah.
So we'll do those kind of release them back to back.
Yeah.
Maybe, I don't know. Maybe we could even have like Cody or somebody on. Maybe, I don't know. I don't know. Obviously, first of all, the technical aspect of having 3 people.
Right.
But then, we can discuss that. But
screw Cody. Let's leave him out.
Yeah,
Just
leave him
me.
out. If you watch this episode, you can give us crap about that, but he won't.
He won't. No, he ain't watching. He's too busy achieving his goals.
He's too busy living life. I think that'd be a good back-to-back.
Yeah.
But then again, I don't even know if it's hyper useful because I think maybe some of that stuff is stuff that we want to keep off camera. So
Well, for me, obviously, as the person who just vomits all of my emotions and feelings and tries to, deploy introspection.
we're pretty out there with the.
I really, I think I would talk about that experimentation and indulgence and how that would inform what I hope to do the next year.
Yeah.
But I definitely hope to get back to more decisions that come from a place of sacrifice. And that goes back to what we talked about: pleasure versus joy. Pleasure is you do something, you indulge in something quickly to get that hit of pleasure, dopamine, whatever. Whereas if you, I think, make decisions from a place more of sacrifice, you will achieve joy because you've delayed gratification. Your and your, I don't know about building confidence, but you're just showing that you don't cave to temptation repeatedly. And I think I have.
Discipline equals freedom.
Yeah.
In a sense.
Yeah. So we're unpacking a little bit more than I thought. No big deal. But that would be, a big thing that I would talk about just with seeing how this year went. But then talking about, well, what are the things I'm going to take from the negative aspects of these more indulgent, less disciplined decisions, the experimentation, and use that in a more disciplined approach in 2025.
Yeah. I think that's we'll try to do that. We'll do the double back to back,
Yeah.
and then maybe we even cover it in the next episode
Right.
and get more into the weeds.
Yeah.
But today we're talking about value.
That's
Damn
right.
it.
We're talking about value, which similar to sort of the epiphany of decisions that came from a place of indulgence. Talking about money and working with clients or brands or whatever from a mindset of the value you create versus how much it costs for you to make something for them was a huge epiphany for me, and something that when I first got my head around the people that understand, value-based pricing and all that, it was like something you always knew, but you didn't have the framework or the machinery to understand how to do it. Notes.
So there's a couple of things that I do want to discuss in value-based pricing. Maybe we set the context a little bit.
Yes.
So I think this is something that Matt and I both kind of had our own ideas about it, and then I learned a lot about it from Matt. I mean, this was probably when you were actively doing your business as a commercial facing entity.
Right.
This is Midland Pictures, this production company. And you kind of, Omaha as a marketplace, especially in the, 2000s, early 2010s, I think was it didn't really have an understanding of that value-based pricing aspect or that model or framework of the world. And you've seen that change a little bit, but we had discussions on it, and recently there's been some things that have come up where I'm okay, I want to revisit this, refamiliarize myself. Obviously, it's not let's get familiar with the nitty gritty. I kind of see the world in this way, anyways.
Sure.
And that, if you've watched the show, I think you have an understanding of we take craft very seriously on if I always say, if you work to develop a skill set or a craft, that always will have value.
Yeah.
If you're good at something on a very intricate level, then that's gonna have value.
If you have expertise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The market is gonna do what the market does. Trends are gonna come and go. Quality typically has value.
Yeah.
Over any period of time, it's about as safe of an investment as you could make. And one thing I also want to talk about at some point is what that means, though, because I think the issue, last episode we talked a little bit about YouTube and kind of the trend culture of like grind culture, things
Mm-hmm.
like that. The trend of grind culture, pardon.
Yeah.
And hustle culture, yada, yada, yada. I think you had a lot of people that came out of the woodwork and were like, oh, you got to be charging based on your value. And then you'd have people that have been doing videography for 3 months trying to value price.
Yeah.
And, you know, while I respect, you know, respect the idea of like go out and earn your money, I do think there's a level of expertise that is required
Yeah.
to operate on a value level, or else you're it's kind of scammy.
Could
You know, approaching
Sure.
somebody and being like, you're going to pay me for the value. And it's like, well, there's no value there, especially with AI. This is going to get even worse, right? Because a lot of people are going to be like, well, you're paying me for my time and expertise. And it's like, what do you mean? You're just using like ChatGPT to think for you.
Yeah.
So, like, yeah, I definitely want to talk about what that actually means. But I guess maybe first just introduce to me as if, you know, it's a new thing.
Yeah.
And to what is value pricing.
So when you think about really pricing anything, and my focus on understanding value-based pricing comes from a place of, like you said, running a production company. Somebody comes to me and they need a video for something that they're trying to accomplish. We can approach pricing the cost of that video from a place of a commodity-based mindset, which is, all right, what are the time and materials that are going to go into this? How do I calculate what it's going to cost me to make that thing? And then how do I add, 10, 15% margin for profit or whatever on that and go from there? And that's what a lot of people traditionally do, especially in like services industry, HVAC, plumbing, drywall, things like that. You need your garage drywalled. Here's what they might even line item stuff. Here's what the materials cost. Here's what the labor is. And this is what it's going to cost you. Sometimes those places might say, well, we can do, like high-end materials, high-end finishing work, and it's going to cost this much, or we can just, do the less expensive option so that you have, maybe some different choices to make.
Kind of a commodity based.
So all of that is just, but then there's people that want to have that work done, but there's things that they don't want to experience in that process. They don't want to experience it taking a long time. They don't want to experience poor communication from the people who are doing it. Maybe there's an extra level of attention to detail because that person just really cares about, things being done at a high level. The finishing work is, really high quality. There's things that they value in that process that the person performing the service could charge more to help that person who's paying for it receive even more value. So the value-based mindset is really asking yourself, what is the value of the result I'm going to get for the person or business who's going to hire me?
And what do you mean by value?
The value can be twofold. It can be sort of ethereal value. How is that person going to feel when they see the finished product? What's it going to do to their energy, their confidence? Are they going to be able to show it off to their friends? And that has value to them to be able to do that. Or the value of the solution that you create. Let's say you're a lawyer and a person is being sued for $100 million. And your legal expertise gets them out of it or shows that they're innocent. What's it worth to pay to save yourself from having a $100 million lawsuit levied at you? Is it worth $100,000? Is it worth $1 million? Would you pay $10 million to not get, not owe $100 million? Same thing in video. So if a client wants a video and there's a specific thing they need to do, we need to communicate our brand's values, our mission, etc., or we need to sell X amount of widgets. How can you have a conversation that tries to ascertain if we are successful in doing this, if we work together and produce a video that achieves this goal that you have and does what you think it's going to do? What does that look like revenue-wise? Let's say it increases your revenue by $500,000. Well, if I'm charging based on commodity, I might have normally thought to charge you $10,000 for that video. But now that I know it's making you $500,000 or $1 million in extra revenue over time, I think you should pay more for what I'm doing because of the impact I'm having on your business. The value that I'm creating is much more than what the commodity-based pricing of this thing that I'm doing is.
Yeah.
So you're re-engineering your mindset as the person who's performing the service to think about with the client, well, what's this going to do for you? How do you want to feel? What's the impact it's going to have on your business? What does this do to your profits? What does this do to your brand lift? What does it do to the awareness of your brand? What does it do in all of those categories, and what's that worth? You get people to think, well, gosh, if you made a video that achieved brand lift, expanded awareness, increased revenue, all of these things, it makes them think, wow, I would pay a lot more for a video that did all of that. Versus what often happens initially, hey, I think we need a video. I don't know what it's going to do, but I feel like
A lot of people have a video. We need a video.
Yeah, a lot of people have a video. We don't have a video. This looks cool on their website.
And
Bob,
it
Bob
sounds,
the roofing guy, he's got a video. Maybe we should do one too.
it sounds really silly too, especially if there's younger people listening to this
Yeah.
that maybe haven't had professional experience
Yeah.
or operated in these like political kind of fields. And when I say political, I mean the interplay between people and egos. But a lot of stuff is just Bob has one, I want one.
Right.
Or
just
like
a
that's
feeling
the
of,
level of thinking.
I hear out there that video is good to have. We should do a video.
Yeah, it's kind of in the zeitgeist, like video,
Yeah.
or like it's somehow made their video as a concept has made its way into this person's influence group,
Yeah.
and we need a video.
Yeah.
Go find me a video.
Yeah. And so what that does then is when the person who thinks they need this thing kind of sees it as a luxury, like we don't need it. I mean, we're still getting phone calls, we're writing estimates, like we're making money and we're profitable, but it'd be cool to have a video. Well, they're not really thinking about what the value it brings is.
Yeah.
So what they'll do is then they just have somebody, maybe they have a small marketing team or, a business partner or, the office manager who also posts to their social media for them. Like, hey, can you just like figure out like what it would take to get a video made? So they're going to Google Omaha Video Production Company and they're going to find a few companies. They're going to look at their website. They're going to see, okay, these guys look good. They're going to email them or call them, say, hey, we want a video. How much is it? And they'll get maybe some quotes or bids or an estimate or whatever it is. And they'll most likely go, who did I like most? What's the vibe of their digital storefront? And how inexpensive is it? And they'll maybe make a choice based on that and call it good. Or maybe if you're fortunate, you were referred to them. And so there's an extra level of trust or sort of mitigated risk because Bob got a video from these guys,
Bob
and
really
he had
liked
a
his
good
video.
experience
Yeah.
with them. They were on time and they were nice, which isn't the most important, most valuable thing for your video company to be. And like, oh well, they're a little bit more expensive, but let's go with them because Bob really liked them. And so that's kind of the general vibe of how things happen in video production in this capacity. And obviously you have other situations where there's an ad agency or a marketing firm or whatever, and they are working directly with clients. They're doing all the creative work, the design work. That company is like, hey, we have a problem. We're not selling enough of this thing. Okay, well, this is what we think you should do to sell more of that. Then you start getting into an understanding of what the value is of solving their problem. But what we're talking about is, we should have a video. There's no problem that's being solved.
Yeah.
There's no stakes there. There's no sense of immediacy or urgency.
And maybe
certainly
there is.
Emergency.
Maybe the problem is insignificance or a feeling of like inadequacy on behalf of them in their social
Right.
group.
Yeah.
And now that is a problem that if you can identify,
Right.
that problem might be worth a heck of a lot to that person. People buy $150,000 cars. People buy $1 million homes
To feel better.
to fill that void.
Yeah.
So that is, that I
Sure.
would say that is a problem. But yeah, I mean, a lot of times it's just like, well, this isn't working. What can we do? We could do a video. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And so they come to you like, hey, need a video. So
Yeah.
maybe we start with how would you deal with that? But then also I'd like to get more into like what the alternative is.
Right. So, to wrap up, the way ideally someone would approach a potential client is thinking about why they want something, and again, what the value is of the solution, as opposed to what it's going to cost you as a business in time and materials to make a video.
Mm-hmm.
So when you shift your mindset from commodity-based pricing to value-based pricing, it changes how you interface with this potential client. So you may have someone reach out and go, hey, can I get an estimate on like a 5-ish minute video that communicates to people like what our business stands for? Typically you would start going through, well, it's a one-day shoot. You would break down like what it's all going to take to do that. When really in a value-based mindset, you want to start asking questions. Well, why do you want the video? What do you hope it's going to accomplish? Why are you interested in working with us specifically? And you start to ascertain whether or not that person is a value-based buyer or a price buyer.
Mm-hmm.
And if you are coming at it from a value-based mentality, but they're a price buyer where all they care about is the lowest bid, honestly, you don't want to work with them because they're not going to. It would be very difficult to shift their mindset from price-based purchasing to value-based purchasing.
But Matt, that's money.
Right.
That's money. What do you do? Why
Yeah.
why would you turn down money? Seriously.
Yeah, I mean, you would turn down that because the dynamic is not favorable to how you want to work. And what's going to end up happening is you know your value and you know what you can do to impact their business, and they're going to just treat you as someone who takes orders.
It's also going to erode over time
Yeah.
what your perceived value to the marketplace is
Right.
if you start taking jobs like that.
And then the video that you make is going to be nickeled and dimed to death into being something that's just a mediocre, run-of-the-mill thing that doesn't really help you move your business forward to attract more clients because, hey, we saw this incredible video that you made for this guy's roofing company, and their sales skyrocketed, the brand trust was lifted, their awareness, the way that you guys rolled out that video on the website, on social media, on a YouTube channel, whatever it was, this had a serious impact on their bottom line as a business, and we want in on that for our business. We want you to work your magic that you worked with them, with us. And that person is then coming at it from a value mindset because they see the value what you did created. Tell us what we need to do to get in on that. Well, first of all, let's have a conversation. Why do you want this? What are the issues you're having with your business that makes you think something that we're going to do is going to help solve those problems? And you literally try to put a monetary value on that solution. And from there, you work backwards to go, well, if this is going to have not only an impact on revenue, but just on the confidence of the business owner, the vibe of all the employees. I mean, all of that stuff, what's that worth? And let's say it's $500,000. Well, a video that you might normally charge $5,000 for, now it's reasonable to charge $50,000 for it, because the person who's going to buy it goes, yeah, I will spend $50,000 any day of the week to generate a value of $500,000. So if you can get in the room with clients that are thinking in that way, you can really have more of a collaborative spirit where you're working together to solve a problem. They recognize and see your expertise, the magic that you have that can be brought to bear on their problem. And it's a way more fulfilling, way more enriching experience overall for everybody versus the commodity-based relationship, especially in the world of video, because many of us lead with our creativity. We lead with our visionary thinking. We see the business and what they're doing currently on their website with their existing video, whatever, and we have thoughts. You could be doing this better.
No.
Not only just with the appearance of it, the style of it, the look and the feel of it, but the actual plan or strategy that's being deployed to take that video and put it in the right places in front of the right people to have much more impact. Now, people can run profitable businesses that are a production company that films events or films, makes just sort of like creates a paint by numbers kind of template for a brand video or a commercial or whatever. And they can create essentially a product that a company can buy. You put them through that paint by numbers workflow and spit out a video that they can then use. There's nothing wrong with that. But again, as someone who wanted to collaborate with someone to think of a unique solution to a problem, and really see the value that it created, and get paid based on that value to be much more profitable than a traditional commodity-based approach, I was sold on that entirely.
Is there like a science to that? Like you said, if it could generate $500,000 and you took 10% of that, obviously you could pay $5,000 for it. You could pay, $50,000 for it. Is there like a science to how you go about finding that number, or is it just more of obviously you do want to cover cost.
Right.
You do envision what does this look like if it's the best? And that doesn't always mean it's the most expensive. Mm-hmm. It's not like you're saying, okay, we got to spend at least this much and then work backwards. You're saying, okay, we want to do this. Obviously, could this concept be executed cheaper? But then also you are coming in with a price. Is there science that you've learned, or is it just kind of intuition? Obviously, too, one person's $500,000 of value is another person's $50 million of value.
Right.
There's difference in the scale of the company.
I would say that there's a science to it, but I think it's really the conversation with ideally the person who writes the checks
Major
for that
stakeholders
business,
in that decision,
a decision maker. So a lot of times what happens is you're working with a marketing director, someone that's not, someone has a limited budget that they're working with on, annual budget or whatever. And it's really the wrong person to be having this conversation with. And that's one of the, I don't know, but it's a downside, but that's one of the things that you have to contend with if you're going to come at your work from a mentality of value-based pricing. If you can't talk to the person who makes the decision and also knows what the problem is, or knows what the symptoms of the problem are,
and I guess also too has a stake in that problem being solved, because that marketing director is probably on salary.
Right.
They're probably they want to do the easiest execution and the most reasonable and within budget. Because if the company, is sacrificing, say, X amount of value by not doing something a certain way, they still get paid their salary.
Yeah.
They still might get their year-end bonus.
Mm-hmm.
Like all of that is kind of accounted for. They're not a major stakeholder in that decision.
Right.
Whereas the one who's really feeling the pain is the person who's got shares that are losing value, or that, you know, sees the road of the next 5 to 10 years and sees, oh, wow, we have a problem here that needs to be solved. Those are the people that are really going to be like, you know what, this problem needs to be solved more than we need to meet that budget.
Yeah.
And they're more likely to be able to find the money.
And so a person in my position would be in the room with that person and ideally saying, well, you're asking so many questions that they're telling you the details of the issue. Well, what would the value be if that problem was solved?
Yeah.
And as, you know, a business owner, they might not like have a scientific way of calculating that value, but they can give you an idea.
Yeah.
Well, I think if we solve that problem, it could mean an extra $500,000 in revenue, or
Right.
it could mean, honestly, it could mean we all just feel better about what we're doing. You know, there's sometimes those intangible values that you can't, it's hard to put like a number on it, but you just have to kind of, what's your gut instinct tell you? And then you can have conversations about the risk. You know, if we do this, we're making a bold move. This is risky. Like, this is a leap of faith we all have to take. And while let's say the solution is worth $500,000, well, we're going to charge $50,000 for it. And if that person's like, well, I don't have $50,000, or I do, but it's really risky, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, well, how does not doing anything play out?
Yeah.
How does, if we all feel like this is the thing, the category of thing we have to do, we have to make a commercial, we have to make a brand video, we have to do a documentary film, we have to, whatever it is that you come up with that's going to help solve that problem, you have to acknowledge that, yes, there's a risk. We could do this and fail.
Yeah.
But what's the alternative? And if it's, let's take the risk because the alternative is continued, you know, slow failure, that person who's the decision maker can better make the decision.
Yeah.
And it's often difficult for people in a position that I would be in as a business, because value-based pricing also exposes, honestly, mental health issues. And I don't mean someone has, you know, a personality disorder. I just mean, you know, low self-esteem, lack of confidence, discomfort talking about money, a difficulty having, or, you know, asking the hard questions of someone that they perceive in a position of authority or a position of the almighty client. Mm-hmm. That's the other thing too, is if you go into the room and you're like, this is my job to lose, you're in a bad spot already.
Yeah.
You essentially want the person that contacted you about the work to convince you to do it.
Yeah.
Because typically there's more wrong with the situation or the dynamic that
they wouldn't have made the contact if they didn't think. I mean, in most cases,
Sure.
Once you're at a certain level, that's how that works generally. Is, oof, this is painful. Reach out to this.
Yeah. And that's what you talked about with expertise. Now, if you're going to start having a value conversation with potential clients, you have to clearly understand, well, how did they contact me? If it was a Google search and I came up, they're not thinking in terms of value. They're just thinking in terms of commodity. Right. So for you to go in and all of a sudden start having a value conversation with the marketing director, it's a little bit of a clash.
Yeah. Before we jump into
Mm-hmm.
expertise, like I do want to go down that rabbit hole, but something you said, I've always kind of liked about it. I want your opinion on this. Like, I've always liked the idea of sometimes you just got to throw the fish back.
Yeah, that's
sometimes
right.
It's not the best fit. And like, you know, obviously if they're having a price conversation, yes, you want to be like, hey, I don't think we need to work together.
Right.
But sometimes they might have the scale that you need,
Mm-hmm.
and they might have a problem
Mm-hmm.
that you feel like you can theoretically you should be able to solve, and they're reaching out to you. But then it's your job, and this comes with expertise, but it's a little bit different, to almost identify, like, am I really your solution, or are you just looking for something and, you know, you want to spend money on it? And I get it. You could totally be the person who's like, well, you know, if they want to give me $100,000, I'll take it.
Yeah.
But if you don't, how's that going to look? If you go and you take their money, you don't solve their problem.
Right.
And then, you know, they're going to go off. They're going to tell everybody, like, yeah,
That's
it
right.
was a waste of money.
Yeah.
It's just going to be worse for you
That's
in
right.
the long run.
Yeah.
So sometimes you just need to ask the right questions and be able to identify, is this the right situation for both of us?
Is this a good fit?
Yeah. Convince me. I like what you said. Convince me
Yeah.
to work on. And that is not the way 99% of people think about this stuff. And I'm like, the whole reason that your business, if you're in this kind of service, exists in the first place is to solve problems and to have an expertise. And if you don't offer that, then why are you in business?
Yeah.
You don't offer anything to the marketplace.
Now, I think that some people, if they genuinely want to just perform a service and they want to figure out
absolutely.
that paint by numbers approach, like, hey, we make event videos, it's a 3-camera thing, we put them in the back of the room, like, it's all very regimented and controlled.
We're locked in at this profit number every year,
Yep.
as long as, like, we depreciate our equipment over.
Yeah.
That is, it's a different thing.
It's a different thing, and you certainly can do that
Yeah.
and run a profitable business. Absolutely.
100%.
To me, it's, and this is where it gets, the difference ends up becoming, you know, again, someone that just performs a service and gets these series of tasks done that create an outcome versus someone that brings some magic and some artistry and something special to the mix.
Yeah.
You know, I could hire a person who could build me a bookshelf, and that person could charge me $500 because it's this material and it's plywood and they put it together and there's no special joints and there's no finishing work, the wood selection, all that. Or I can hire a carpenter who's really choosy about what projects he does or she does, and I tell them what I want to feel, what I want it to look like in the room, how long I want it to last, all that stuff, and they prescribe to me what I need.
Yeah.
And I will gladly pay a premium for that. The other analogy, too, is when you go to the doctor, you don't show up and say, hey, look, doc, figured this out.
Yeah.
I've got pancreatic cancer, and here's what we're going to do.
Yeah.
You're going to administer chemotherapy. Then we're going to do a round of immunotherapy. Here are the drugs we're going to use. These are the days I'm going to come in, etc. And I have been in the room with clients that are like, hey, we need a video. This is what it's going to be. I need this. I need footage of this person. And I'm like, well, whoa, wait a second. What are we doing? Why are we doing it? Like, pipe down, video guy. You're just here to be told what to do. We don't do that with a doctor because we look up to them. We sense their expertise. We don't have the knowledge of medicine to properly self-diagnose and treat ourselves with complicated issues. So we look to them for their expertise to not only diagnose our problem, but to also prescribe a remedy. And I always wanted to be perceived of as the doctor in that situation with video, not not just someone that showed up and
it's
was
tough
told
with
what to do.
like, you have tools like Canva and tools like the iPhone camera and stuff like that really degrade the service of, like, a visual art. And you have plenty of people, when you were given the bookshelf example, you have plenty of people who are like, it's just holding books.
Right.
Like, why would you pay more ever for that?
Yeah.
And well, the answer is if you think that way, there's nothing wrong with that.
No.
But there are people, and we're probably two of them,
right,
who would pay a little more just to have something a little more elegant.
Yeah.
That, like, I heard this amazing quote this morning, actually. It was like, a designer's job is to elevate a person's expectation of what a thing can be.
That's right.
So I want to look at something and be like, oh my gosh, that is so much better than anything I've ever seen in that realm of, item or experience.
Yeah.
man, I never even imagined that. And now I have this new plane of looking at the world because of how, beautifully well designed this thing was.
Yep.
And that's what you pay for. And you know what? If you just want a bookshelf, go get a bookshelf.
Yeah,
and
go
there's
to
always
IKEA
going to be a
and-
market, and
yeah.
there's always going to be people that serve that market. You can go to Target and get a book, Walmart, get a
That's right.
plyboard bookshelf for $30. Or you could pay $1,000 for like a, intricate oak, hand stained, carved,
Each piece of wood was sourced by
Yeah.
the carpenter to be, the best grain
Yeah.
that doesn't have any
no warping,
knots, no
it's-
major
yeah.
issues.
Yeah.
They use, their amazing tools to handcraft it,
Yeah.
the edge it, all this stuff. And then they're, adding, let's say 10, 15, 20 years of
Yeah.
experience in carpentry
Yeah.
to get you this.
And it's like, you know what? Both do the job. There's 8 billion people. Like the reality is there's 8 billion people in the world.
Yeah.
There's always going to be people who want that, and there's always going to be people who want the alternative. And you have to decide what you want to be. And we both agreed. It seems like sometimes you just got to throw the fish back. It's not a good fit.
Yeah.
Really quick before we can go back to the expertise. But do you remember that video I sent you of the John Mayer album cover?
Yes.
So it was like this one of John Mayer's album covers. I think it was Born and Raised. He got that hand painted and like the type was hand drawn and intricate. The whole video is on YouTube. We'll put it in the show notes. But essentially, this person he hired this artist to hand detail everything. Painted it on glass. He was like a sign artist, and the whole process is on you. I'm sure it probably took 100 hours. Maybe more. And, 30, 40 years of experience on top of that, 100 hours.
Yeah.
And it was, every detail was just so, and most people just completely overlook it. And, it's just an album cover. Oh, that's kind of cool. Move on. But he paid for that. The record label paid for that. They probably paid handsomely too. I'm sure it cost probably over $100,000, $200,000, if not more than that.
Yeah.
And the thing that I learned when I watched that is just there's somebody that's willing to pay for quality. You just have to find that person and align with that person. But
Or
it's also your
Your
job.
work has to attract them.
Or attract that person, right?
ideally.
But it's up to you if you want to fill that market or not. And there's always going to be somebody filling both markets.
Yeah.
And you need to decide if you want to fill that market, if you want to fill the other market. And then you have to obviously establish the expertise to be able to fill that, because that's a very stingy market.
Sure.
Every detail. It's like Steve Jobs hiring like Paul Rand for the next logo. And he's, he's looking at every detail. He's like, we need to change the da 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 da. On when he's doing the computer design, but then Paul Rand is this person that he looks up to, and Paul Rand just comes and he's like, this is the only one I got.
Yeah.
And Steve Jobs is like, it's perfect.
Yeah.
And like this notoriously picky guy respected him enough, or looked up to this guy enough, that he was just like, he's literally like freaking out about this, how square can we make the computer, and with his design team. And then Paul Rand comes in with this logo and he's like, I made one. He's like, this is our meeting. Like, do you want it or not? Like, you already paid me, I guess. And Steve Jobs is like, it's perfect. So yeah, it's like a level of respect that the client has for your work. If you can establish that, then, and the expertise to back that up.
Yeah. And that's the hard part when you start out that path, or maybe if you shift from commodity-based pricing, you're frustrated with the dynamic with the client, you are getting results, but they could be better if you were more trusted and your expertise was more brought to bear. You need to get results.
Yeah.
You need to really make sure that you are understanding what's needed, that you are looking at what other people are doing, analyzing other successful video projects with other companies, that you're paying attention and what's missing for this company. Like this is exactly what they're doing wrong or overlooking, or this type of video telling this story about this employee or this customer, or this type of ad about their product or whatever, is going to be the thing that has a huge impact. You hear about it, of course, with iconic ads from, the last 30, 40 years. And I won't go into any of them. People know the advertisements that they've seen that either immediately had an impact and got them to buy the thing or to fall in love with that company or brand, or the consistent exposure they had to that company or brand that got them on board with making their first purchase or whatever. And that's the difference. I think that commodity-based pricing and making the IKEA bookshelf of bookshelves is a way to grow a business, scale up, have 10, 15% margins, and maybe not have as much stress and pressure to deliver those big results. And when you're someone that comes at it from a place of value, if you're going to go that approach, then the pressure's on for you to deliver. Now, even if it didn't work out, the idea that you had, the way that you and the business owner decided to go, if what you made is still high quality, it's well made, it's well thought out, there's craft and expertise there, but something didn't connect or didn't resonate, you need to iterate on that. But you can at least still look at it and go, we missed the mark with something, but this was still a really well-made thing.
Yeah. You're not gonna bat 1,000. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Apple, we look at Apple and, they certainly have made products in the post, the Steve Jobs and post Steve Jobs era that just, didn't resonate, or they didn't resonate right away, and it needs more time. Sometimes that's a thing with a partner, a business partner, a client. This isn't going to happen overnight.
Yeah.
This is something that we have to chip away at. If it's a brand style videos versus a commercial, like we have to take where you are now, which this is what people think of your brand, and we want to bring them here.
Yeah.
It's going to take a lot of work.
Yeah.
It's not just one video and it's done.
Yeah.
It's overhauling your website. It's changing this. It's not making T-shirts and swag and all this dumb stuff anymore. It's highlighting these stories from your company that you just take for granted, but those are the types of stories that a potential customer is going to see, and it's going to make them, love what you stand for, trust you, all these things that lead to loyalty, brand loyalty.
Yeah.
But how do you also tell those stories? Authenticity is obviously that big buzzword, but you want it to come from a place of truth about the company, but you're helping shine a light on it where it wasn't shown on it before, versus crafting a propaganda piece that's bullshit.
Yeah.
Because that if you talk about, we give to charity, or we volunteer in our community, or we do this or we do that as a company, that'll tug on the heartstrings of viewers and accomplish the goal that we want.
Yeah.
So there's that too.
Yeah. So I do you ever feel like a client will come to you, and when you give them the value-based proposition, or you're giving them hey, this is what it's actually going to cost. You ever feel like there's a gap in your expertise to be able to pull that off? I mean, obviously you can't really feel that way, but have you ever felt that way? Like, how do you contend with that? A bit of imposter syndrome might creep in when you're giving somebody like $100,000, invoice, or, $100,000. Yeah. If your RFP's, $75,000 higher than the next best one. It's are you looking at them and being like, I am $75,000 better?
Yeah.
And you have to be, but yeah.
I just haven't really. There's definitely been times where I've put a proposal together, especially as a YouTuber, where I didn't have a value conversation with the client, what they're asking for is a relatively low time commitment. And what I can charge is not some big exorbitant, rate. So, and I can also just from their email kind of get a sense like I'm one of 100 influencers they're reaching out to. So I'm just going to throw out like even just like drop a price anchor and be like, well, what you're looking for, ranges in price from, $5,000 to $15,000. Is that something that you want to move forward with? And if they're like, yes, I'll go, okay, now let's have a value conversation because this price anchor didn't scare you.
Yeah.
So now it's worth my time to invest in fleshing out this relationship.
Yeah.
And there have been times where I have thrown out a price anchor because one thing I don't like doing is writing proposals.
Yeah.
When someone has spoken like they understand
Yeah.
the value and understand the problem.
This is so
but
big.
Ultimately,
This is so
are a price
important.
buyer just
Yeah.
kind of going along with taking my lead in the meeting. And I've written
Either just
proposal
a
after
charismatic
proposal.
person or a heady
Yeah.
price buyer. Yeah.
Yeah, I've written several proposals where I put my price options out there, and they're just like, they don't even reply sometimes.
Yeah.
And so I've wasted enough time with that, and not to put the blame on them. The blame's on me for not sniffing it out. Like
Yeah.
you have to practice
This
the
is-
craft of having the value conversation to where you
Price anchors are the most like important thing. I think that because it's a way to immediately identify if you should be spending your time with this
That's right.
person.
Mm-hmm.
And if they say yes, they're okay with that, and then down the road they're like, yeah, this is way more than what I'm looking to spend.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe, which is not worth your time, but it's a lot less likely to happen. If you go to somebody and you're like, hey, this is what it's looking like, is that okay with you?
Right.
And they say yes. Typically, the people that say yes you're in the right ballpark.
Right. They've crossed that first obstacle to, in your eyes, warrant further conversation. I mean, the big thing too with me is the biggest thing with like dropping a big price anchor or putting a proposal out where, yeah, I know this is incredibly expensive. I just have never really been like scared when there's a possibility that it might actually happen.
Yeah.
Where imposter syndrome creeps in. I want to feel that, I've got to step up to the plate here.
Yeah.
Whether it's the risk, the investment of it all, I need to step up to the plate and bring my A game.
Yeah. It's on me now.
Yeah. And I'm excited about that.
Yeah.
I want to collaborate with someone, a business, a brand, where we are working together. I am bringing my skills and expertise to bear on your problem, and we're going to swing for the fences with this. And when I know the value that it would create if it works, if we hit a home run, if we knock it out of the park, you guys, it's going to do this for you. Imposter syndrome isn't even possible because I think about what I'm getting paid in relationship to the value that this could create.
Do you think people are just like so caught up in the dynamics of business? Like almost, I call it playing business.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of adults out there that just play business. They love to play business.
Sure.
There's people with successful companies that play business.
Yeah.
It's just something that they enjoy doing, and they think that like all of these little decisions that they make are very important and things like that. And at the end of the day, they're just playing business.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that people get caught up in that where they've almost built so many layers between themselves and what, like, business is pretty simple. Like you have a market, you have a product or service that serves that market,
Mm-hmm.
and then what is the value exchange there. And if you're on the side of the person providing that, you have to make sure that your costs are covered so you can continue operating.
Right.
And on the other side, that's what they're trying to do too. They're just trying to make sure that their costs are covered, and they've encountered some kind of a problem or maybe a potential for more growth. And so they're reaching out to, either explore that potential for more growth or fix a problem that is affecting them being able to service their bottom line.
Right.
And I don't want to oversimplify it, but I like to break everything down to what's the core of this. And at the end of the day, that's kind of what it is. Mm-hmm. And obviously there's so much more intricacy in between there. There's what does your customer look like? What is your relationship to that? How is your brand viewed in that customer's mind? What's the quality of the service? What's the cost of that? Logistics, whatever. But do you think a lot of people get caught up in things that aren't really important, and then when it comes down to you're sitting with them having a conversation, or you're here to service something, they've almost lost sight of what's actually important? Do you ever feel like that is something that...
I don't know that I've ever had it where I feel like they've lost sight. To me,
maybe not lost sight, but they're trying to solve a problem that isn't really their problem, or they're haggling over something.
Yeah, I think people can self-diagnose for sure. It's just like going to the doctor. Doc, I think I got pancreatic cancer. Well, actually, you've been eating a bag of Skittles every day for the last 5 years, and your problem is inflammation from eating 500 grams of sugar.
Have you been to the doctor recently?
So I think there's certainly situations where a business can self-diagnose, and our job is also to just listen.
Yeah.
What's going on? What are the issues? You sometimes, and this is where having business training and understanding that person's perspective is really helpful, because sometimes, you got to crawl into their business, and they have to trust that if they show you these things, their numbers, what this converting, whatever, likes on Instagram, whatever it is, whatever these metrics are that aren't what they want them to be, that you can hopefully identify what the root cause of that is. And that also helps instill confidence in coming up with this prescription that's going to solve that problem, that's going to cure the disease, that's going to fix the thing that is going on. This would happen to me when I would do tech support for Apple. Someone calls in, oh my gosh, my computer won't turn on. It's really hot underneath. It's making a weird sound. They will rattle off all these things, and you're like, oh my God, it's the bride. You got to take it into the Apple store. It's 9 times out of 10, dude, I would just go, well, let's restart your computer. And I would go, when was the last time you restarted it? I don't know if I ever have. Okay. Let's restart it. And the mouse isn't working, or the scroll pad, they would restart it and everything would be fine.
Yeah.
So if you let yourself get caught up in their energy, that can certainly lead toward doing the wrong thing for them, and them potentially paying a lot. Then you're at risk of not getting the results they want. Then they hate you for the investment that they made.
Yeah. So how do you get into that? Hey, what you called me for isn't necessarily what you need.
Yeah.
And you can pay, and because, I feel like I did a terrible job of presenting it, but you got it.
Yeah.
I mean, the Apple thing, you understood what I was trying to get at. The idea of how do you, I understand you're worried about this, and this.
Yeah.
But what's causing these are secondary. They are these are symptoms for you have a bullet in your leg right now. How do you have that conversation?
I mean, again, it just comes from that value conversation, continuing to ask questions.
Yeah.
And probing. I think that's really the responsibility of the person who wants to solve a problem for someone and charge based on the value of that solution. You have to have what typically is an in-depth conversation to understand what the issue is, and and how to fix it. This is just like when a business hires consultants, like, hey, we're hemorrhaging money. It's like Office Space. What would you say you do here?
So about an hour into filming, we decided that we still had a lot to cover. So rather than cut it into 2 recordings, we decided to keep going and release the clip or the podcast as 2 separate episodes. So what you just heard was part 1. Part 2 will be released in 2 weeks at the regularly scheduled time. So as always, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching if you're watching, and we will see you soon.
It had been a golden afternoon, and I remember having the familiar conviction that life was beginning over again with the sunrise.